Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had,
Yeah.
we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it The Why and the Buy. How's
All
that?
right. Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of The Why and the Buy. My name is Jeff Bajorek, but you probably already knew that. And I'm sure you also know that my partner's name is Christie Walters. She is as lovely as ever and here to join us today. How are you, Christie?
I'm doing fabulous today. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. The days are getting shorter and the squirrels are getting fatter around here.
Yeah.
It is
and the
fall.
Falcons
It is
beat the Lions on Sunday. I'm sorry. It just happened, but it was an ugly finish. I just am saying.
So 6 weeks from now, when this thing actually airs, people will be able to go back fondly and watch how the Lions got jobbed last Sunday. But I'm not much of a football fan. And beside that, Steve Nudelberg is here. And Steve is patiently watching us banter back and forth. Steve is our special guest. He's got a book out called Confessions of a Serial Salesman, 27 Rules for Influencers and Leaders that will change your life and business. Steve, how the hell are you?
I am absolutely top of the world, on fire.
I love it. You can, yeah, you know what I love about you, Steve, is that even in your marketing materials, the pictures of you can tell you're on fire, right? So a lot of people, it takes a couple of sentences before you really feel that energy. It oozes out of the photograph from you. I love that.
Thank you. That's awesome. It's one of the main reasons why I've created success for myself and the people that I coach and work with, including my two boys who I had mentioned. It's training. It's difficult. There's a lot of negative influence that's thrown at all of us. We learn that, everybody's fighting some kind of battle, but how you deal with that and how you show up in the world makes a difference. And people who know me will always say, wow, man, do you ever get down? Do you ever get tired? And I go, I do, but you will never know it. So
right.
It is training of the mind and body to show up and be the best. And I do speak about that in my book, that it's part of your mindset and, what you want to take out of life. So thank you for noticing, but I am genuinely on fire.
Nice. I love it. So why the book? Why did you feel called to write the book?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. So I think my high school teachers would probably have a party. I'm like one of the most ADD guys on the planet. And so the fact that I would be asked to read a book was a challenge, let alone write a book. And in all candidness, I never did think that I was one of those guys that would write a book. But it came through people prodding me saying, wow, you've developed such a process for what you do. And I believe great teams don't watch the scoreboard. They have great processes. So great teams, great leaders. So I have this process. I have raised both of my boys in this process. Any of the people who have worked with me over the years have believed in this process. And in sales, let's face it, we all signed up for something that we know we're going to get the most rejection of any other profession. The rewards are there if you're good at it, but really being good at it is just figuring out how to deal with the rejection. That's what this system does. I have, from the minute I wake up until the minute I go to bed, I have a way to program and train my brain and my body to get the things I want. And enough people were writing books and doing trainings that I thought were missing the mark. There just was a lot of stuff out there that didn't make sense to me. And I said, I can do this. And so it came from the heart. It's something I do every day. It's not something I chose to write about it. I've been fortunate. I've worked around great people. I pay attention. I'm a student of the game. So this is my little gift to the universe, that it's my way of doing it. And along the way, the influence that it's created is so rewarding, far greater than any financial success I've had. And I love it, so whether it's young kids, people that are sending me pictures, their 11-year-old is up in bed reading my book, or it's an 80-year-old grandmother. I think it has a way to, take who you are and what you are and make you better.
What's really interesting, and Christie and I have talked about the parallels before. We had an episode on this podcast about the parallels between sales and golf. But what comes up a lot, and one of the reasons that we named our podcast The Why and the Buy, is because there's so many parallels between sales and life, why you do anything, and how that relates to. I mean, there's just so many things in common. Why people will buy something, why people will do something. When you pick 27 lessons, and those 27 lessons will be applicable, as you say, to young people or old people or salespeople or not salespeople. I mean, how do you pick 27? How do you stop at 27? I mean, where did, I mean,
it's like Santa's list, like the roll just keeps on going and going and going, right?
It's funny. So no one's ever really asked me why 27. For me, there was a little bit of sort of superstition, as it were. My first extremely successful sales, relationship was in the cellular phone business. I wound up building or helping build a very large company, and my sales number was 27. And I always sort of gravitated towards that as sort of my go-to number. But the reality is, I put it in sort of phases. Some of it is about how you think and how you treat your body, what you eat, and all things like that. Some of it is about life lessons, and then some of it is really specific to sales. And so what I present to people are, these are my 27. You can either use them all, you can cut out some of them and add your own. Clearly, there are many more life's lessons, but this sort of was the big broad stroke of things that I think you need to pay attention to in order to be successful. So, you talk about sports analogies. When, whatever, if you go into the gym and work out, there is some process that you look at. These are the basic fundamental building blocks of how you work out in the gym. When football players go out on the football field, the coach doesn't say, just go out there and run around. This is sort of a basic building block formation that should cover all of the things that can create instant actionable success. And one of the things I find difficult about training is that it's so convoluted and so hard for people to digest. The minute you're done reading any one of the chapters, you can go do it and go, wow, that worked. And then it will kind of bring you to do more. And so one of the things I ask, and everybody that has either bought the book or has been part of my trainings, is I want to hear what worked for you and how you're going to make it better or work for you. If it just sparks a thought. So they're my 27. Could it have been 21? Could it have been 51? There's no magic number. And as a matter of fact, one of the most difficult parts about finishing the book was coming to a final piece that I would present, because I'm a conversationalist. And so every question brings me to say something else. Coming up with a finished product was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. So it's 27 that work, that if you do these things, you should see immediate success rather.
There's a couple of things I want to touch on there really quickly. One, when you're a conversationalist like this and you are a speaker, you're never at a loss for things to talk about if you need to fill more time. You're also never at a place where you can't end because there's never any logical end to where you to your talk. You just kind of keep going. And then when it's time to end, you can stop. And it never really feels like you're out of sync in that regard. But also, when you mentioned the gym.
I want to make a comment to that.
Yeah,
I think you're 100% right. I spoke at a conference called the Association of Luxury Suite Directors, all the people around the country that work for teams that sell premium products. And when it was my turn to get on stage, the AV broke. And the guy who was running the conference was like completely freaked out. And I said, that's okay, fine. I'll just get up there and do what I do. And I spoke for 45 minutes with no backdrop. And he was like, wow, I've never seen anybody do that. And I go, I didn't learn that material to teach it to you guys.
Yeah, right.
I live it, breathe it.
Right.
I mean, so it's like, I mean, it's a little nicer and sort of felt good to have, graphics to flow, but you give me a word and I can talk for an hour.
Well, and that's when you talk about living it, right? And that leads me right into my next point. It's kind of what we were talking about a little bit before we started recording. The idea that sales and life are intertwined, and success begets success. And one of the things that, there's people out there like, I can't go to the gym. I've got to work. Or every time I go to the gym, someone from work calls, or there's something to pick up, and I need to have hours, and I need to find structure, and I need to find balance. And so much, I think, of success in today's economy and today's business world specifically, you have to learn to, and I'm not an expert at this just yet, but you have to learn to let your business life and your personal life kind of dance together a little bit. I mean, Christie, I think what you talked about, or what you mentioned, was that it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. And, I can see you at the gym, on the treadmill, pumping iron, whatever it is you're doing, and then with your phone, just taking a call. And for so many times, for so many people, Steve, I don't think people can actually do that. And I think that they can't do that because they're fighting the wrong battle. I think they're fighting to keep things separated instead of allowing things to commingle. I mean, what do you think about that?
So it's interesting, and it speaks to the name of your podcast, the whole why people do what they do. I love what I do. I have passion for being a sales professional, for, the way I see things, the way I act. And so to me, it's all part of who I am. So to separate it would seem foreign. I think the problem is when people are doing something that they hate, they want that line of, that boundary so that they can say, oh God, I hate doing that. Now I have my time. And it really doesn't work that way. Instead of creating my time, you really should be searching for passion. And one of the number one things that I teach just about every salesperson that I work with is that no matter what it is, if you do what you love, the money will follow. And that's where that life congruence happens. People say, wow, it looks like you're having a good time. I follow you on social. You're always happy. You're always at events. And well, that's part of what I do. I'm working, I'm meeting people, I'm building brand, I'm doing all of the things that I love to do. So why would I not take a call at any time, early, late? To me, I never bitch about the travel. We talked about it before. I get to go to different cities all the time. I have friends in each city. There's so much great culture in all of the cities I go to. I had never been to Detroit up until a couple of years back. And my connotation of Detroit was, Detroit. And it is a fantastic city. There's so much happening there, so much rebirth, and the things that are going on there. Nashville is fantastic. Certainly LA, Chicago, New York. I'm in Charleston today. Charleston's a happening little spot.
Town. Yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And the food and the people. And so why wouldn't I, this is work. I'm working right now with you guys. So I think it's, focusing on passion is so significant, and you create your own passion. Part of the mindset is what do you allow yourself to think and believe? And the more you think you're in a miserable position, the more it fulfills itself. So,
oh yeah. Well, you just hit on a hot topic for us, because we spend an awful lot of time talking and teaching and coaching about attitude and mindset and how critical that is to success, whether you're in sales or in another career focus. It doesn't matter. Attitude and the way that you connect with people is everything. And I mean, it's huge. And I think a lot of people don't spend the time needed to really understand their purpose and their core value system. Right. So what I hear from you, and we talked about this prior to starting the podcast, is that, that passion isn't manufactured. That's just a core part of your being. You wouldn't know how to separate it if you tried, right? Because it is such a core of your value system. That would be so much work
to try and do that. I can't even imagine the effort it would take to do that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that the state of where we are today is that the social media has made things so transparent that unless you are truly authentic and truly genuine, that's where people they lose trust in you. Wait a minute, you were this and now you're this. And, I am who I am. I don't think that everybody's going to like me, nor do I care. I am out to attract the people who I'm supposed to be with. And, you know, if you're in sales, you already understand the numbers up front. You're not going to sell everybody everything. So you might as well spend your time connecting with the people that you're supposed to be with. And that's fun. The reason why they call it social is that it's supposed to be fun. You know, so it's this whole, oh, I don't have the time to be social. Really? Like that one is a total mind blower for me, because isn't that the reason why we're humans and we're on earth? And, you know, if you spend your time focused on trying to sell something all the time, I mean, that feels like a very shallow existence, when for me, the real wins are the people I get to meet and interact with. And I was just in Atlanta last week. I got invited to a special charity event that was hosted by Ray Lewis, the football player. Mm-hmm. There was probably 20 of the Atlanta Falcon guys there, a bunch of successful guys. I was so touched by Ray's message. I felt so special being in the room. Now, was that work, or was that play, or was that, October, early in October, I'm going to have dinner with Ray Lewis. Now, as a football fan, there's a part of me going, oh my God, I'm going to have dinner with Ray Lewis. You're like a kid, like,
yes, right.
Oh my God.
Can I come?
But I know I can really help him with his cause.
Sure.
And so I can bring who I am and what I am to that conversation and look at him and go, you do what you do, I do what I do, and 1 and 1 becomes 11. Wow, and that's where the magic happens in any business that you're in.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, and I have real respect and admiration for other people who do great things. And so for me to be in the room around that, I listen, I learn. I actually went Facebook Live on his opening monologue for that event, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. I mean, so special people do special things, and and I think when you find your spots, you know it. Like, I'm in my groove. I've never been happier. Even though I've sold things my whole life, I've been fairly successful in most of the things I've done. It all like sort of came together in a place where I invested in social media early on. I understood that, are you kidding me? I could take my message and broadcast it for free. I was like, so, okay, I'll do that. Wait a minute. I know advertising costs me a lot of money. And so all the tools that are available to us as sales professionals, it's never been better.
Steve, you said you've found your flow. You've found your place. You're on top, you're on fire, right? How long did it take you to find that? When you say, I'm here to attract the people who are meant to be attracted to me, and I'm good if the rest don't like me, that is a huge and very difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow, especially people who are new to sales, who are trying to please everybody. How long did it take you to realize that? And then, the back end of that, how much more amazing is it once you've taken that pill, so to speak, and learned that lesson? Things have a habit of just skyrocketing at that point. But people who haven't been around long enough to actually learn that lesson don't realize that yet.
So I think I was fortunate enough early on in my sales career to always have that confidence. That was one of my gifts, was that I had the confidence that I'm going to do everything I can to provide value to you. If you don't see it, that's not on me, that's on you. Now I've had major letdowns and setbacks and disappointments. But for me, the onset, and this was every single business I've been in, and I've trained all of my own salespeople, obviously, it was like, all I was trying to sell was what we called an at-bat. When someone's going to make a decision on purchasing something, I want to be part of the decision. Right. They don't have to go with me, but I want to be one of the top 3. I want to be in the dialogue. So I never put myself in a position where I was trying to make a transaction. I wanted to sell me to the point that, you know what, he's a good guy, I'll give him a shot. And I think people went out of their way for years to help me do stuff that they wouldn't do for other people. They might pay more. They may be a little bit more inconvenienced to do business with me. And I understood that value proposition, that I didn't necessarily care if you bought from me. I really wanted you to know who I am, what I'm about, And I wanted the opportunity that at some point in my career to come back to you. So that build 40 years worth of great relationships. People say to me, wow, you know everybody. Yeah, you know what? Because that was what I sold. I didn't sell you a phone or a car or any product. I sold you on, I'm a person that delivers value. And at some point I want to knock on your door and I want you to answer. I think other people get caught up in the immediate. I need to sell you this. And people, especially now, they just don't want to be sold. There's too much information out there. There's too many other options. So, success in sales, I think, is a product of pipeline management, not real sales ability. It still cracks me up when I hear people go, here's a book, it's the 101 Ways to Close. I'm like, seriously? Someone got paid to write that book? It's like, to me, it's ridiculous. People don't buy unless they are motivated to buy for whatever reasons they buy. So I have had some of the most gigantic letdowns where I had an expectation that somebody would buy, and salespeople really relate to this. Because I'll say to them, did you ever have one of those deals where you basically knew it was a done deal? You came back, you put it on the board, you were already spending the commission money, you were done. That was the biggest deal in our company history. And for whatever reason, that deal didn't happen. Now, so replay the movie. Would you do everything the same to get you to that same point? Absolutely. You did everything right. You got it to the point where it was out of your control, and it didn't happen. So that's where I say, teams that watch the scoreboard lose because you have no control over the actual purchase. Put it in a position where it could be bought and then go back and manage pipeline. And the more of those opportunities you have, the more it's unbelievable. Stuff that I don't even think is going to happen. All of a sudden it happens. And it's like, wow, that was a flyer. That came out of nowhere.
Yeah. So
my pipeline development and pipeline management skills are much better than my closing skills. Because when you provide the right amount of value and you build the right kind of relationship with people, the close takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's really what creates stress and creates unhappiness. And, I'm here in Charleston working with a new company that we've actually taken an equity stake in. And I've changed the way the salespeople operate. I said, I don't want you to worry about the close. Let's just build pipeline, people who we've worked to a point where they understand who we are, what value we provide. So when they make a decision, it's an educated decision. And it just makes sales so much more fun, I think. So
it does. Your focus at that point is on doing so much to earn the sale. You don't have to worry about trying to close it.
Yeah. Well, and it also helps you, I think, not follow the rabbit down the hole, right? So not go after just the one big deal.
Correct.
Because every good pipeline is made up of small, medium, large, and oh my God size deals, right? So if you're going after the oh my God size deal and it falls apart, you darn well better have a handful of small, medium, and large ones to fill in the gap. Right. And if
I speak about it in the book, I had one of those. I had a naming rights deal done that was basically done. I was in the client's office in Memphis, and I'll never forget it. We were in two cars driving to dinner to celebrate because the team that we had done the building we had done the deal with was going to fly in the morning. And I got a phone call that said, hey, the board made a decision and we went with another client. And I was like basically devastated. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things, it's all about training. I was so devastated that most salespeople would be done forever because all they would be talking about is the one that got away.
Right.
And I see that in a lot of salespeople. They don't know how to forget. So for me, I learned this from boxing. You get hit, you have 10 seconds to get off the floor. When you get the wind knocked out of you, that was the best education for me ever. I learned so much from that pain of, oh my God, this was a life-altering deal. This was financially just, the perception of the size deal that we had done, and it didn't happen. Would I do everything the same leading up to that point? I would. Yeah. I got us to the point where it could happen, was out of my control. So that understanding that pain, and I think that's the other side of sales that people don't get, is that every time you lose, you learn something that makes you better. And that's what boxing and all great teams that have lost, they get to the championship the first year, they lose, they understand what that pain feels like, and they go, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah,
so,
you just described the Atlanta Falcons in entirety.
Interestingly enough, their head coach, I know a lot of the guys on the Falcons, their head coach bought yellow bands for all of their players. And the yellow bands this year said, embrace the suck, because they know that was their championship that they lost.
Yeah.
They didn't do the process like Tom Brady went in the locker room at halftime. He didn't freak out. He said, look, we know how to do this. We're just going to do it better in the way we know how to do it. So, and they did. And so sorry for your Falcons, but they look pretty good.
Yeah, they do. Dan Quinn's amazing too. He's really, I won't digress for those that aren't listening from Atlanta. So, but I'm a big Dan Quinn fan. So,
actually Devontae Freeman is a real good friend of ours. My son recruited him back at Florida State, and it's just a quality guy,
Oh my gosh. He is amazing. And
Matt's a quality guy.
Yeah. So Devontae actually has a lot of even social media hits about some of the, just some of the interactions he has with the general public who has no idea who he is. And he's just a good guy all the way around. So a lot of the guys on that team are, what I'm interested about.
There's a lesson there.
Yes.
There's a lesson there.
Yes.
So no matter what you do for a living, if people walk away going, you're a good guy or you're a good gal, you won.
You win.
Yes.
You won. That's what it's supposed to be about, not then you have an opportunity to do what you do. So it's really so perfect. You hit it right on the head.
I love it. That's awesome. So, what I'm interested about, Steve, and I want to go back to that, to the deal that you talk about in that phone call as you're on the way to dinner to celebrate with your team. There's every salesperson has had some level of devastation, maybe not to that level, but some level of devastation like that. And it often is devastating to us, but if we are in a position of leadership where you're having to go to that dinner and tell people who have really put blood, sweat, and tears into this deal that it didn't go through, how do you have that conversation? What does that feel like, and how does your value system play into that conversation?
So in this particular situation, I was with the client, so it wasn't my team. So
got it.
I was there visiting them so that the following morning the deal was actually going to get inked.
Okay.
So my initial reaction was terror, fear, doubt, all of the, the emotion. Oh my God, I thought this deal was going to happen. I'm embarrassed. I'm all of the, the gamut of emotions. And then there's this great equalizer called tequila that
fixes it all.
So, but interestingly enough, thinking on my feet, I did realize that, wow, this client had already committed to spending this large sum of money with me. I should probably, instead of focusing on me, focus on the client and their needs, which were to build a national brand. There's hundreds of other opportunities that I could bring them. This was bad for me. Not nearly, it wasn't bad for the client. It was okay. It's not what the client wanted.
Yeah.
They had agreed to do the deal, but it wasn't devastating to them. So this paradigm shift of it's not about me, it's about them was where salespeople really go wrong, because listen, in all fairness, they don't give a shit about me. They're worried about their business, what's good for them. And if I would have gone into the sulking mode and made that night about me, I would have never done business with them again.
Right.
And that's what happens to a lot of salespeople. So, being a realist and saying, listen, I'm not happy about what happened, but the reality is, in the scheme of things, it's not the worst. It would have been easy. It was done. It was already over the goal line. It was, and believe me, Detroit is probably feeling that this week as well. That was over the goal line. But, having said that, when you're managing teams, I think understanding what people's intents are. What's the intent here? What's my objective? What are we trying to achieve? And really zooming out and not making it about us. And I think salespeople, and I'm included, have a tendency to be all about the drama. Oh my God, that deal didn't happen. What are we going to do? Drama does not do anything for anybody, Right. So it is a bit of discipline that says, all right, let's really assess what happened here, and what's the next step. And this is also in the book. I learned this from Nick Saban, who has a saying. And it's interesting because I've also heard that Lou Holtz was the one that said it as well, but I know it through Nick Saban, and it's called win. And for most people, win was win or lose. In this case, win stands for what's important now. What's important now. And so, when you have crisis, focusing on what's the next step in the process is really the most important thing, I think. My headsets are going to die. So I'm going to switch here for a second.
Okay.
Am I on?
Yes.
You are on.
All right, cool.
Excellent.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so that actually sounds even better than my headset. But so this idea of focusing on what's important and what's right in front of us, salespeople always are like, oh no, in the future, and oh no, in the past. Right then and there is really where all the magic happens.
Yep.
And that's why I wrote about it. It's how you train yourself. Okay, but what can I do now? And so these little tricks or little things people relate to their lives. What can I do going forward instead of, when I go in and work with salespeople, it becomes I'm the psychiatrist. Well, I lost the deal in 1986 and that would have changed my career.
Right. The trajectory of my career would have been completely altered. Right.
If you blame your mom for this one, dude.
That's right. Exactly. What is in your control? Let's really kind of evaluate that, right?
Salespeople don't want to do that, So, and I make some generalizations because I have worked around the best, and all of my thinking has been shaped by mentors and people that I respect. And so I take a little piece of this and a little piece of that. And one of the cool things in the book is that I use examples in each of the rules of people that influenced it. And so it's very real. It's very tangible. My older son, who is now the head of recruiting and special teams at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, he wrote the foreword, which was really, really a very proud moment for me.
Sure. But
one of the things he said, which made it really, really work for me, was he said, Dad, I feel like you're telling me I hear your voice in the book. And that's what I really wanted. I read a lot of books. Cool. I read a lot of books that I just can't relate to. I can't hear it. And so when people do meet me after reading the book, they go, "Oh my God, that's it!" So that might be a good segue to ask me what books I read.
Okay,
there you
what
go.
books do you read? One book, Steve, that's not yours, because we're already going to tell people to buy that, but Good. One book that you have read that you think that someone brand new to sales should read right away. And if it's a different book, someone who has been in sales for 20 years but hasn't read a book in a while, what do you recommend for those two people?
So I'm going to give 3 books that come to mind. And
make your own rules, Steve. It's totally fine.
Listen, welcome to my work. Did you say I could do 3? You didn't say that.
Good.
First book, and I believe every single person in sales should read this book. It was a book by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called The Tipping Point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote the book prior to social media, and it's genius. It is the law of few turned into the law of many. And if you want to be good in sales, that's really, really a foundational part of it. So it's an absolute must. Another quick, easy read. I actually buy the book in bulk and give it out all the time. Mm-hmm. Sign it and give it out as a gift, because I think it's something you should read. Book number 2 is a book by a guy named Robin Sharma. And if you have not read him or followed him online, you should. He wrote a book called The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. And that was one of those books that, another quick read, blasted me in the heart. Bam! Total game changer. Gave it to my son, became my son's favorite book as well. So generationally, it speaks to the why. And then the third book, which could be Simon Sinek's book, the why, it's not that. It's actually, and I cannot remember the name of the author, but the book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a.
Yep. I just downloaded that book. It's next in my queue to read on Audible.
One of my favorite books. I laughed. I underlined. I'm still one of those guys that likes the physical holding the book. It's an orange cover. The guy has an amazing sense of humor and real takeaways about what's really important in life. And it's just great the way he tongue in cheeks the whole effort.
I like it. That has been on my list for a while, and I keep skipping over it. So I'm going to have to go back and.
It's next in my queue.
Yeah, it's awesome. So those are my three.
Awesome. Well, you're allowed to make your own rules anytime you want, Steve, because those are really great suggestions. Thanks for doing that. So, all right. Why are you here? Why are you here on this podcast? Why do you do what you do? Take this question any way you want, but we ask all of our guests, what is your why? Steve Nudelberg, go.
Okay, so I was fortunate enough many years ago, before Simon Sinek became actually the Simon Sinek that we know today. He was early on in his speaking career, and my entrepreneurs group in Florida had him in to speak at Nova Southeastern. And he absolutely mesmerized me from a marketing perspective of why companies do what they do. And he gave, obviously, his golden circle is tremendous. So it made me look inside and say, why am I doing what I do? I am 57 years old, and I have a very different perspective of life than I did when I was 21 and running up the ladder. The takeaways for me are I have this gift. I know that God gave me a gift, that I know how to speak and I know how to train, and I have something to offer. And I am thrilled and elated that I have the platforms now to do that. So my book has touched people in a way. The responses blow my brain. I'm working here in Charleston with, as I said, a group that's called the Gotcha Group. They are experts in college marketing. Their sales staff is all made up of 20 somethings. And my gift to them is all of the years of experience, and they're soaking it up so greatly that I'm going to change their lives. They will be different. And I think throughout my career, the people that have worked with me and for me have left better or different. I have people all over the country, all over the globe that are in major sales jobs who said, listen, you might have been an SOB to work for because of how hard you work and your passion and all, but I am who I am because of you. I wouldn't trade any of that for any paycheck on the planet. Nice. So that's my why.
Yeah. That's an incredible way to wrap it up. I have so enjoyed this interview, Steve, and I hope you will let me know when you come to Atlanta again. I know you were actually visiting with a friend of mine, Melissa Gordon, over at Echelon Communicate last week. I know, and I didn't notice that until I was running through everything. In fact, I talked with her just a couple of days ago. And so definitely would love to connect with you face to face. And this has just been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And I'm gonna grab a copy of the book as well. I'll add that to my list. And how do people get a hold of you? How can they reach you?
Well, I am very, very, very available on social media. So any of the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything is at Nudelberg, Nudelberg. I return all of my emails and responses myself. One of the rules in my book, the first rule is I wake up early. So every day I'm up at 3:00 returning emails and sending out stuff. So, I try and be as accessible. And if there's a reason that you want to connect with me and there's a way that I could be of service or add value, I'm all about it.
Absolutely. And you have a podcast as well called Confessions of a Serial Salesman, right?
Yeah, I do it actually in conjunction with ESPN Digital. They're friends and partners of mine. And I bring on other entrepreneurs that I've worked with to sort of tell their story of how they got to do what they do. So it's a very new effort for me. We're on, I think tomorrow we film episode 5, I think. Oh, cool. My guest is John Sally, who is the Spider. Yeah, the Spider. I figured Detroit. The Spider is a very good friend of mine. We are in multiple deals together, and one of the most genuine, awesome people on the planet. And his message about eating vegan, I told him I'd give him a stage and he could jump on it. So, I'm talking about that. But, all of these vehicles, if you had asked me 5 years ago, would I be doing a podcast? Would I write a book? Would I be blogging and vlogging and all of this stuff? There's so many tools that anybody who has something to offer can get up and, take the stage. So it's a really special time to connect with who you are, what you are, and then share it with the world. So it's cool. Look at what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
I did Chris's show. Chris loved it. I meet you. Something good will happen from us knowing each other. I already know it. So, and I bank on it.
Well, humbled to have you on and talk, because I'm sitting back here nodding my head a lot because there's a lot of stuff you're saying right now that's ringing true to me. And I know there's a lot of things that you're saying right now that are ringing true to our audience. So really, really appreciate you coming on. And this is awesome. We'll be reading the book, and we'll be telling others to read the book and telling others to check you out, and go find Steve Nudelberg. Do it right now. Nudelberg, just like he said, at Nudelberg. He's all over the place. Thank you for being here. Christie, Steve sounds like a guy, looks like a guy, on fire like a guy who knows his why.
That's right, because when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better.
Ooh, I love
that. All right, everyone, take care.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.
See ya.
I told you once, I've told you twice. I told myself it doesn't matter.
How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out. Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why in the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at the Why in the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.